When I first read Lemon Sky, I fell in love with it instantly. I remember it was given to me by Lindsay Law, the executive producer of American Playhouse. And after I'd read about 10 pages, I knew it was something that I had to do. It wasn't just the story or the characters, it was also the way Lanford was trying to tell the story that I found so moving. I also found it a challenge. I wasn't quite sure how to translate what he had written so effectively for the stage into filmic terms, and I thought that was really the big challenge of the piece. He'd written a memory play in which characters addressed the audience, moved back and forth in time, and I thought the challenges of trying to do that on film were just really invigorating. So I set to work to try and reimagine the piece in filmic terms and began working with Howard Cummings, the production designer. And he came up with a design for what was basically a house, a real house, which we built on the sound stage at WGBH. It filled the entire stage from corner to corner. You could barely walk around it. And it was a substantial house, a real house. It had furnishings and doors and a kitchen. It had everything that a house should have, but it was also totally insubstantial. It had scrim walls that would disappear by changing the light values on one side or the other. It had a bar that was a setting 10 years in the future, connected to the house, so that characters could freely move from one world to another. And that was very much the spirit of what Lanford had written. The house really became the working metaphor for the play. One of the first challenges was to try and figure out how to move back and forth between 1967 and 1957. The bar is actually an invention. It doesn't exist in the play or in the script for the play. We had to locate Alan somewhere in the future. So we built a bar and built the bar into the geography of the house. And Howard built one of the walls as a scrim wall, so that James Glennon, the DP, could, by raising and lowering the lights, make the wall visible or invisible. One of the challenges was getting these scrim wall dissolves to work properly and to get the timing right. Dan Gillam was the gaffer, and it fell to him to figure out how to adjust the balance of light on each side of the wall so the wall was either solid or would disappear. I remember that when we first began filming, we would stand on the soundstage and get the balance right, get the timing right. It would look perfect. When we got the film back from the lab, the timing would be way off. And it turned out that our eyes responded differently to the light levels than the film did. So we would have to adjust to it and make the dissolves on the stage work for the film and not for us. And that's something that Dan did very skillfully. The wall between the front hall and the boys' room is a scrim wall and basically disappears when Ronnie and Alan move into it. The fish tank actually works as a scrim wall. The fish tank is in between the living room and what becomes Alan's bedroom. And all through the house, pieces of the set would just fly away. The cabinets above the kitchen counter we used to take in and out all the time. Just kind of at the convenience of the photography, and it didn't really disturb anybody's sense of reality. Howard makes another appearance in the movie, not just as the production designer. There were a couple of occasions where we thought, gosh, it would be neat if you could actually make one of these transitions and see Kevin in two different places. And because nothing in this film was done digitally or after the fact, everything was done on the soundstage. It turned out that Howard looked a lot like Kevin. So we could put him in the background, and at numerous points in the film, when you think you're seeing Kevin twice, you're really seeing Kevin and Howard Cummings. We rehearsed the piece as if it were a play from beginning to end, then put it up on its feet and rehearsed again on the actual set. We rehearsed it long enough for the family to become a family, a dysfunctional family, but a family. And you know, after a while, it really became the property of these actors, of Tom Atkins and Lindsay Krause and Kira and Welker and of course Kevin. They really took it over and owned it. There's a wonderful moment near the beginning where Alan has first come into the house, and he's sitting at the kitchen counter with Ronnie, Lindsay Krause, and with his dad, Tom Atkins. And they're all excited to see him, and they're talking, and I think Ronnie says something about, you know, that first summer you put on weight, and he looks at her and he says, it was the air, and they laugh. And who knows what the joke was? I didn't know what the joke was, but clearly it was a shared moment that they had found that spoke to their history as a married couple, and it was fantastic. And I was just delighted every day to watch these guys do this. They totally owned these people and lived in their skin. And for us, it was a pretty simple process of just photographing what they did. One of the things that we did was to shoot the film in very long takes, so that often the lighting effects would happen in the middle of a take that might be as long as 3 or 4 minutes, which is quite a long stretch. We didn't shoot it in the conventional way of doing a wide shot and then close up, close up, close up, and make the scene happen in the editing room. It was much more a question of choreographing both the actor's movement and the camera's movement so that the image size would change within a long shot. The other thing that it did was it really empowered the actors to control the pace of the piece and to give them a real sense of really playing the scenes and playing them fully. I think you can really see that near the end of the film in the scene where Alan and his father really go at it, the last 10 minutes of the film. It's basically one long 8-minute shot. It changes in image size because the camera is moving in relation to the actors and the actors are moving in relationship to the camera. But it's very much controlled by the actors. It's their pace, it's their rhythm, and it also gave them a long stretch to really work their way into the scene and to do it fully. And I think it's quite remarkable.
Damn it, tell me what they are! They're Melloryl! Melloryl dope! What the hell do you think they are? And I don't give a shit! What?
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Here, take them! Take them out! Take every goddamn one of them! Take them!
When I first started to read the play, as always happens, images just instantly kind of come into your mind about who these people are. And for me, Alan was always Kevin Bacon. And in fact, at a certain point after we spoke to him about doing the film, it looked like it wasn't going to be possible for him to work with us, and we basically decided to abandon the project. Luckily, things shifted, and he was able again to rejoin it, and we went ahead and made the film. I think that what he does in shifting from the 17-year-old to the 27-year-old is remarkable, among many other remarkable things that he does. It was also just one of those productions where everybody who came in the door was the right person. When Kira came in breathless from having done an episode of Miami Vice, I remember, it was just clear that Carol had walked into the room. Same with Lindsay and Tom Atkins as the dad. And with Welker White, I believe this was her first movie.
Carol and me. Oh, damn. Carol and I are both going with millionaires.
And as we worked on it, I began to realize that it wasn't just a play about a young man coming of age. It's the story of a young man who comes back home to rediscover the father that he hasn't seen for 10 years, and in that summer really becomes the person that he will be. And it's a very moving story and a very strong story. But I began to realize that there was another story going on that Lanford was grappling with, and it had to do with memory and creativity. Early on in the piece, Kevin in his sort of prologue, says, I'd been trying to write this story for years, trying to get it down, but every time I sat down to write, the characters would get up and get a cup of coffee and do whatever they damn well pleased, and not tell the story the way I wanted to tell it. And I began to realize that that really was what Lanford was writing about, the struggle to write honestly, to be creative, to be open, and to be honest about experience. And I found that tremendously moving. And I began to realize that the house that Howard had designed was in fact the perfect stage to tell that story. It seems real, it seems substantial, and yet at any given moment a wall can disappear and you're pulled back into a place that may be painful, or a memory that's difficult, or a family fight that is just practically unbearable.
None. None, mister. Not from
I
you,
know
not
that.
from anybody else. You learn it.
And that really became the tension in the movie, and for me, what I find just tremendously moving about the piece.
My whole body, it's like, I can't do this. Hell.